What's up, guys? Welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. So let's get into it. So first Sunday without football. This kind of sucks that we're here at the end of the season, but it's also awesome because we're on to the new part of the season, which means for most franchises, the hope is back. Getting to look at prospects. We got the scouting combine here in like another week or so, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait. And then you're gonna have the free agency. So we got a lot of stuff to cover here in the coming weeks. It's been kind of slow now because, of course, this is the only part of the offseason where you're just kind of like sitting in limbo until the scouting combine starts. Because once that starts, a lot of guys move up and down on the draft board. You get a little bit better of a idea of where those guys are going to go, and then also you start going right into the new league year. So you get to figure out who's going to be returning to the team, who are going to be free agents, the roster bonuses that are guaranteed, all that fun stuff is coming right around the corner. And speaking of that, so just looked at the Dallas Cowboys salary cap space. So it looks like as of right now, they are almost $3 million over the cap. And that's with losing about 20 free agents. So there's a lot of holes to fill, to say the least. But just playing around with over the cap, and I know it's not perfect, so I'm not saying this is the gospel or anything, but just messing around with it a little bit. I mean, I was able to free up about $55 million just messing with CeeDee Lamb's contract a little bit and messing with Dak Prescott's contract a little bit. Excuse me, not even to the extent that the Dallas Cowboys could mess with them, right? I just messed with it a little bit. I converted some of CeeDee Lamb's base salary into a signing bonus, and then, lowered his cap charge to about $14 million for next year. I lowered Dak's to about $57 million next year, which actually I think on Dak, you can kind of get it down into the 40s. And with CeeDee Lamb, I mean, you can get it down pretty much almost as low as you want. So the Cowboys, with just flipping a switch and a couple of contracts, can free up more than enough cap space to not only sign any of their own free agents that they would like to sign, but also bring in any free agents they would want to from the outside. So as long as they structure them correctly, shouldn't be a problem. So don't let the Cowboys tell you that they don't have any money to spend and that they can't create any cap space, because it's all a lie. If they go after doing something good with the coaching staff to lying to our face and telling us they can't create cap space so the team can't get better, trust me, they're lying to you. So just want to let you know, as free agency goes, the Cowboys, if there is somebody out there that they feel can move the needle, I know I've heard Brian Broaddus talk a lot about Nick Bolton. I know they also probably want to try to bring back Osa Odigizua, but it looks like he's going to cost a lot. But you're going to have Melton Williams out there. You're going to have James Conner out there. A lot of different guys who might be able to help you out a little bit with this team. Miami just released Raheem Mostert. He's a touchdown machine. I think that would be a good signing, just as an example. It doesn't have to be this guy, but that's a good signing going into the draft, knowing that you want to draft a running back, but then having somebody like Raheem Mostert, who A, is a speedster. He's got juice. And then B, he's a touchdown machine. Last year, not this year, but because he had a lot of injuries this year, but last year he led the league, in touchdowns. He had something like 21 or 22 touchdowns. So dude's a touchdown machine. And with that speed, even if he slows down a smidge, he's still going to be faster than anybody we have in the backfield right now. And then you pair him, with another running back in the draft, and then, maybe even two running backs in that draft. Then you might feel a lot better about your running back room going into next season. Now, it's going to, of course, say how much does he command on the open market, being a 30-plus-year-old running back who just came off of a season with a lot of injuries. I don't think his number is going to be too high. So that's something that the Cowboys might want to kick the tires on. But that's just one example. But they got plenty of money. Don't let them fool you. So now we were talking a little bit about draft talk. And today I wanted to cover a couple of different receivers that I want to look at. Now, I watched the draft show on DallasCowboys.com, and they've been lumping a third receiver into this group, but he's not in this group. I think it is Ted McMillan and Luther Burden III are your surefire top 15 pick wide receivers. Like everything else after them, I'm not saying those guys are going to be bad or that they're horrible, but I think these two separate themselves and in completely different ways, right? So looking at Ted McMillan, I think that would help the Cowboys out a lot as far as getting CeeDee Lamb some open looks. Because Tet would be a legitimate threat from the very beginning of his career. Like the moment he is on the field on Sundays, I think he's going to be able to play very well. 6'5", so he's a very tall guy. 212, so he's tall but he's lanky. But I think he'll play pretty close to that. I mean, a lot of people, when you see a tall, lanky receiver like this, you think he's going to be slow. But Tet is actually, he's not a burner, don't get me wrong. But he's definitely not slow, and he's got some shiftiness even with his size, which is nice to see. He's a hands catcher, which is always awesome. So he does go up and high point the football. He attacks the football very well. He's also very good at stopping his route and coming back to the quarterback. So on those plays where kind of Dak is in trouble a little bit, and he scrambles out to his right or scrambles out to his left, somebody like Tet is going to present a nice big target for him. And then even if Dak underthrows the ball or it's supposed to be on the front shoulder and it's on the back shoulder, he shows a lot of good adjustment and a lot of good field awareness to be able to find the ball, get to the ball, and then fight for it. I mean, his quarterback, when he was throwing the ball in Tet's direction, it didn't matter if there was two guys. It didn't matter if there was three guys. He was coming down with that football. You almost don't have to worry about an interception if you're throwing it in his direction and it's anywhere within the vicinity, which is awesome. That's going to free up so much for CeeDee Lamb. Now, the other part about this is he's going to be a rookie, right? And even, let's say, going next year, but let's just project his rookie season. As a rookie, he's not going to get double teamed. CeeDee Lamb's going to see all your double teams. CeeDee Lamb's going to see a safety over the top. He's going to see linebackers buzzing underneath his route, which means Tet's going to get a lot of one-on-ones. And then you can stick him outside at the X receiver and win those one-on-one routes. He's great on the sideline. He's great with his footwork. I don't know really who to compare him to because he runs better and changes direction better than a lot of receivers at his height. He kind of reminds me a little bit of T. Higgins. And he's a little bit faster than Keenan Allen. So I wouldn't even call him Keenan Allen, but his body control and the way that he makes those contested catches does remind me of Keenan Allen. So if I had to give you two comps, but he's faster. He's faster and shiftier than Keenan Allen. So I think he's going to be the person right away that you can, like I said, stick at the X spot. But even if you wanted to line up CeeDee Lamb sometimes at the X spot and line him up in the slot, I think you can do that too. So I think he's one of those guys who will help fill a need for the Cowboys and also instantly give Dak Prescott another target that he can trust pretty much completely. All right, so now the other guy that I wanted to bring up is Luther Burden III. Now, I like him more than I like Tet McMillan. I'm not going to lie. I know most sites have Tet McMillan as the number one wide receiver in the draft. And that's only because the Colorado kid is probably going to be playing more cornerback. Otherwise, he probably will be the number one wide receiver in the draft. But I like Luther Burden more than both of those guys. I think he instantly provides something that the Cowboys have not a lot of, right? So you have Kevontae Turpin as your speed threat, and the Cowboys under Mike McCarthy would use, kind of Kevontae Turpin in the backfield. You could use him on some jet sweeps, the slants. We saw him take one of those to the house, which was awesome, but the Cowboys didn't do it enough, right? And that's because of the way Mike McCarthy likes to run his offense. What I'm hoping is with these new guys in here, they'll do a lot more of that pre-snap movement, pre-snap motion, getting receivers, the ball in their hands quickly and in space, right? It's it's nice to get them the ball quickly, right? CeeDee Lamb always got the ball quickly. But a lot of times, CeeDee Lamb would have 2 or 3 guys on him. They didn't use a lot of motions or him on the move to kind of create space before, the snap of the ball. And then on the snap of the ball, because he's already on the move in space, when you get him the ball, he has a chance to make people miss and take it to the house. I want to see that with CeeDee Lamb, but I think a player like Luther Burden III is one that you can do all the stuff you do with Cavante Turpin, but more. He also is a much better down the field threat. So that's one of the things with Cavante, right? He's a small guy. Luther Burden is a little bit taller. Cavante Turpin's listed at 5'9". Luther Burden is more like 5'10", 5'11". So he's got a little bit more size. But man, down the field, the way he contorts his body, it could be underthrown, it could be overthrown. I've watched reps where he was getting grabbed and held, and there was one rep going down the left sideline, so offense is left, defense is right, where he's running down and he's getting his right arm held and the ball is put over his left shoulder towards the sideline, and he still reaches out with one hand, makes the grab, and then still scores the touchdown, even though he's being held. And there was a flag on the play. It was awesome. So he's going to give you a little bit more than Cavante Turpin did going down the field. The other thing I like about it is when you watch Luther Burden III, he's moving at a completely different pace than the rest of the people on the field. Like, dude is fast, like fast. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he runs in the mid to low 4.3s. When he runs at the combine, if he decides to run. I hope he does, because I just want to see how fast he actually is. Meanwhile, with Tet, I expect him to be more in the 4.5 range, 4.53, somewhere around there, which is not slow, but that's, probably about the speed of, let's say, a Terrence Williams, right? But he's not a body catcher like Terrence Williams. He has better hands than Terrence Williams. And overall, just a more polished receiver than Terrence Williams, unless it comes to sideline catches. I don't know anybody that was better at that than he was. But Luther Burden III, a little bit smaller, but can carry the routes everywhere. Now, what this would allow is if I had Luther Burden III, I would do so many different bunch formations. Like, I would line up my receivers, him, CD, Cavante, line them all up tight to the line of scrimmage, and when the ball snapped, just scatter, because it's going to be very difficult for corners to keep up with that speed at all, especially if you have him tight to the formation and then you have Cavante tight to the formation on the same side. I mean, defenses are going to look at it, and of course they're going to go with Burden, because they're going to be like, I'm not going with this Cavante kid. But most of them are actually going to be focused on the other side and probably focused on CeeDee Lamb. So it's just, you got a lot of opportunities there. And then on top of that, I think it will open up the run game, because if you have a receiver with his speed, you got to respect it, right? So you got to kind of play off a little bit, put some safeties deep. You can't necessarily, play single high safety with a situation like that, because of single high, I mean, CeeDee Lamb eats that up all day. And then you add a Luther Burden to that. So you're not going to play a lot of single high, which means you're going to be playing a lot of two deep. And then you're also going to be trying to double CeeDee Lamb. And then on top of that, you end up with a coaching staff that has a much better feel for what they want to do in the run game. And you could really open some things up on offense, running the football, just adding something like Luther Burden III into the mix. So I think if it's me at 12, and this is just receivers, right? When we come back, we'll talk about, a running back, because there's only one that I would take at 12. We'll talk about some defensive linemen. We'll talk about some defensive tackles. But I'm saying, if you want to help your offense, so you're helping your quarterback and you're helping your run game, I think either one. I wouldn't be mad if the Cowboys selected Tet McMillan. I definitely wouldn't be mad if they selected Luther Burden III. But if I had a preference, I'd go LB3. But that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can hit me up on Twitter at JMillerIYL. That's JMiller if you like. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. Again, knockersonthebottom@outlook.com. You can also hit me up at knockersonthebottom@gmail.com. I'll take questions here. I'll take them via email, take them via Twitter, put it in a mailbag, make it a formal segment. You can comment below. If there's anything specific that you want me to cover or any questions that you have, let me know. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, J Miller if you like. This has been Knockers on the Bottom. Peace.